So that's sort of a first look at functions. Now I'm going to go ahead and disable this, and then I'm going to go ahead and scroll down to the bottom here and take a closer look at what exactly is going on with the parentheses, and also introduce the idea of a return statement, which again can be mildly confusing, especially if this is very new to you. So, just like before, we have a function defined up here, and that function is called add. And just like with variable names, this can be anything at all. Just as long as you're consistent about it, then the computer is going to be able to recognize what you're trying to do. But I'll demonstrate this as well. The fact that this is add is completely irrelevant to the actual operation. So here I'm adding two things together, but it's actually doesn't have any bearing on what the function actually does. It's just the fact that, well, I'll demonstrate what I mean a little bit later on, but just that there's nothing special about this name here. This can be anything at all as long as I'm consistent about it. But here I have this function called add, and now you'll see I have some stuff that comes after the parentheses here. And this is basically the function. This is basically a function that can take in values. So in the function that we had up here, this doesn't take in any values at all. In fact, when the function just runs, it just prints a bunch of random stuff that I decided to put inside of it. But here, this is a function that can actually take in values, and you can sort of think of the function as something that takes in values, does some operation with them, and then spits back some sort of result, whatever that might be. So in this case, I'll actually take a look at this. So in this case, I have x and y. Now, these variables are something that the program uses to keep track of what numbers go where. So here, again, I have this function call here. I have the name of the function followed by a set of parentheses, and I have two values, again, separated by a comma here. So, and the order here is important. So whatever the first value is here will also be put into the first variable inside of the function. So x is the variable that keeps track of the first value that's passed to the function, and this y here is a way of the program keeping track of the second value that's given to the function when the function is told to run. And within the function, I have the sum is equal to x plus y. So when I pass this 3 to x, this 2 to y, it's going to use those same values as they appear in the function and then perform this addition here. So by having this 3 first, the 3 goes to x when the function is told to run, and then the value of x then takes on 3. Then same thing with the y value here. This 2 goes to y. That value is then used in place of y here, so we get 3 plus 2. That result is 5, and that result then goes on the left-hand side, which is the sum. Now we have this return statement here. Now the whole idea behind the return statement is that's how you get the information back from the function. And this might seem kind of confusing at first, but whatever is to the right of this return, which in this case is whatever value the sum has, this return the sum, whatever value that is, that value, whatever it is, goes in and replaces the original function call. So I brought up the idea earlier how a function is something you plug numbers into and get the result back. The return statement is the actual process of giving back the result. So under that logic, we would expect the 3 to go to x, the 2 to go to y. The computer will do 3 plus 2, which is 5. That number goes in the sum. So the sum is holding on to a value of 5. And then this return the sum means take the value of the sum, which is 5, and take that result and put it in place of the original function. That's the result that we get back from telling the function to run. So that 5 is going to replace this bit that I have highlighted, and so this will just print out the number 5 when I go to tell it run it, and you can see we do in fact get that result. So what I said may seem kind of confusing, so let's actually employ the use of a visual aid to sort of help understand what exactly is going on here. So first step, we tell the function to run and we pass the values to the function. So in this case, on what's on the graphic here, the 10 goes to x, the 23 goes to y. When we reach a return statement, then the returned value goes and replaces the original function call. So this return the sum, this value of whatever the sum is at this point, the program will go in and replace this entire thing that's on the right-hand side here. And then whatever that result is will go in whatever's on the left-hand side. So in this case, we're just printing out what the return value is, but I can also hold on to it, which is what you can also hold on to that result and put it in a variable which I've called the result. So I have the result is equal to whatever value I get back from calling the function add and passing the values 10 and 23 to it. So just from looking at the function, we can sort of deduce that 10 plus 23 is in fact going to be 33, so that goes in the sum. Return the sum means take this value, replace the original function call with it, and then that then goes in what's on the left-hand side, which is a variable called the result. So this is a way of getting the information back from the function. So again, the whole idea behind a function, put some values in, do some operations, get a value back. The return statement is how you actually get the value back. The return value, which is what this is often referred to, whatever the sum is, that goes in and replaces whatever the original function call was. So if that number then replaces this function call and that then goes on the left-hand side of the result, then we would expect the result to be 33. And that is in fact the result that we get. Now I want to go ahead and demonstrate something that I said earlier, and that is there's nothing special about this function, the name of this function itself. So I could call this function do math. And then here I have to change it as well because I no longer have a function called add. It's now called do math. You can see I get the exact same thing. The fact that this is called add has no bearing on what the program is actually doing. The only thing that has a bearing on what the program is actually doing is the statements that are contained within the function itself. That's the only thing that's telling the computer to actually add the two numbers together. The fact that this is add does not itself tell the computer to add the two numbers together. In fact, if I wanted to, I could do this. That doesn't add the two. The fact that this is add doesn't. The fact that the function is called add doesn't actually add the two numbers together. What actually matters is what's inside the function. Here I'm actually subtracting the two numbers, so I get a negative 13. So just something to keep in mind. And another thing that might be worth pointing out is once this return statement is reached, the function terminates right then and there. So just to sort of verify that, I'll go ahead and put a print statement in here. So this is going to give me test, but if I put this print statement after the return statement, again, the program goes in order, so it's going to do the addition, return the result. Once the return statement is reached, the function then terminates at that specific point right then and there, which means it's not going to reach this print statement. And you can see when I go to run this, I lost the test that I had earlier. The reason why test worked earlier is because I had it before the return statement. So again, if you want to get a value back from the function, you want to store in a variable. And one other very important thing that I want to demonstrate, these variables that are defined within the function are not accessible from outside the function. So if I tried something like this, so you can see the sum is defined up here. If you attempt this, you will get this potentially confusing error message, just saying the sum is not defined. And then you might be saying, oh, you dumb computer, the sum's defined up here. And then hopefully you'll remember what I said and say that anything that's defined within the function is not accessible from outside the function. So if you want to get a value out of the function, you have to use the return statement and set a variable equal to the actual function call itself. That's the only way you can get the information out of a function if it's contained within the function. So just something to keep in mind, what's defined in the function stays in the function. The way you get the information out is to use the return statement in conjunction with something like what's on line 34 here. So that's going to do it for this segment about functions. And in the next segment, I can actually give you a preview. We'll take a look, we'll sort of expand on this idea of functions and take a look at something more specific. This is going to be a really short segment, but I do want to sort of focus on this particular segment because it is kind of important. But with that, I will see you all in the next segment.